What's going on, guys? Just wanted to show you kind of my lower body warm-up that I do for deads and squats. Everything I do is with a pretty wide stance. So a lot of people ask me, how I increase hip mobility, what do I do? And actually, until I came to Kabuki, I really didn't have like a 100% positive answer for that. Until I got here, I wasn't able to really identify my weaknesses and then make the right assessments to fix them. I would get a lot of crap like, stretch, roll out, do these things that'll help, and they tend to alleviate some of the stress for maybe a brief second, but they never quite fix the problem. So going to Kabuki and getting on their movement website, which is kabuki.ms, I was able to kind of self-assess some of my weaknesses and then build a plan, which you're going to see here, in order for me to be prepared for my workouts. For me, it's a warm-up's about preparation. It's not about getting in there and foam rolling and doing some stretching to try to make things loose. For me, it's preparing the body to do the movement that it needs to do and to do the technique that I'm trying to accomplish, right? So if I'm just going in there, laying on the ground, rolling out, that's not really going to do much for you. If you ever get a real massage, a lot of times they'll tell you afterwards, don't really work out for a day or two because your muscles are beat up, they're kind of fatigued, they're kind of tired, so kind of let them rest. And then you go to the gym and you foam roll, which is essentially the same thing. I don't understand how you can't correlate those two together to see the benefit from, or the disbenefit from it, going into your workouts. So what I like to do is I like to do a lot of movement stuff. I like to do a lot of priming stuff, and I like to make sure that every time I do something that I'm bracing, my core's tight, and that actually, from what I've found, increases your range of motion without pain tremendously. Is just by getting your bracing and getting everything else tight would actually increase your range of motion, not so much the opposite, which a lot of people would think. By getting everything tight, you think your muscle is going to be tighter, but by actually bracing and getting everything tight and ready to go, it actually increases range of motion without causing pain. So check out the video, let me know what you guys think. I'll probably put an upper body one up in a week or two, and just try this stuff out. Remember, like I said, this is for me personally, so obviously it's not applicable to everyone, but you can kind of get the gist of what I'm trying to do, and as I talk you through it, you'll kind of see why I'm doing it. So catch you guys next time. Take care. So like I said, guys, most of the stuff I do is because I pull sumo and is because I squat wide. So everything's going to be really geared towards opening up the hips, getting my glutes ready to activate and work, and getting my hips ready to work. I was pulling for my last meet, and I noticed that my right leg seems to lag a little bit more than my left, meaning that my left leg will start picking the weight off the ground and the right side will still be there. So what I started doing was these glute raises here, with my feet onto the wall and using my glutes to move my leg up and down, not moving my knee, making sure that my glutes are firing, moving it, which is why I have my hand on my glutes, not because I like to touch myself, but because it actually works when you actually put your hand on the muscle to make sure that it's firing. So next I get into more of a squat sumo position, nice and wide, have the kettlebell back and forth, and what this is doing is just counterbalancing, giving you a counterweight so that you stay tight, you activate your core, and when I'm able to do that, I'm able to kind of wiggle my feet out a little bit every rep, just getting a little bit more, a little bit further out. And what I'm also doing is squeezing my glutes and trying to drive my knees out and bring my hips closer. So all this is going to do is just activate those muscles that you use for your sumo pull and for your squats. This is a 55-pound kettlebell, but you can use pretty much any one you want, and I do about 10 reps here and 10 reps on the glute side raises. After that, same kettlebell, counterbalancing, kind of like a Jane Fonda movement here, and what this is doing is just kind of waking up and getting the outside of my glutes and hips and IT band and everything just firing and ready to go. If you've done any of the rooting drills, or if you've done any of the squatting stuff that Chris has on his movement website, you know that the side of your leg gets beat up pretty bad. So by doing this to activate it, get it ready to work, you're going to actually be able to recruit more motor units during your squat. And that's kind of the basis of any warm-up, is to get in, move, get stuff ready to go, prime stuff, and get those movement patterns working, so that whenever you're going to do the maximal force, you're not bound up, you're tight, everything's good, and you're able to fire more muscles and more motor units during your work. So here, this is just kind of a three-way lunge. What I'm doing is just kind of a split lunge, rotating, squeezing my glutes, pushing my hips forward, getting a good stretch. As soon as I feel like a little bit of a tightness, I'll pull back and just kind of working it back and forth. And then you'll see I'll kind of shift my leg behind me. And what that does is that makes sure that you get your hip flexors a little bit more. And then I'll shift my leg to the side, and that way I'm opening up my hips here. And like I said, just 10 each side, just a little bit of a push forward, feel a little bit of tightness, bring it back. And I actually learned this through Dr. Snell, who's up here in Portland, and Dr. Dean specifically worked on me. And what he said was that you don't want to overstretch it, you just want to stretch it to a point where you feel a little bit of tightness and then relax. Feel a little bit of tightness and then relax. And over time, you're actually going to get a little bit further of a range of motion. You're going to get those muscles used to going to that range of motion. It's not ballistic stretching, you're not forcing the movement to create the range of motion. You're just pushing it to where it feels just a little bit tight, and then you're kind of relaxing it, and then push, relax, and you'll notice as the weeks go on, you're able to get a little bit further, and actually what this does is that, once I started doing these, it created zero hip pain for me throughout my movements, which I used to have a lot of. I used to think the belt was digging into my hip flexors, causing pain, but actually it was just my hip flexors were tight, and they weren't able to fire, and they weren't able to get loose because I was doing wrong stuff. I was foam rolling, I was static stretching, I was doing stuff that wasn't really priming the mover. So here's a new one me and Chris worked on the other day. This is really going to be good to fire your adductors and get your hips ready to go for sumo. So you just kind of sit down, touch, bring your hips through, come all the way up, stand, and then reverse the movement. Do that once or twice, and then I just really focus on getting my hips down to the ground and opening up. And you'll be able to tell here on this side that my right side, which is weaker, once I go to the hip movement up and down, that I kind of just collapse down, and I'm not able to hold myself up right there. So you can just tell immediately that that's the weaker side. That's an imbalance that we have to work on, and by doing these, we'll be able to build that up. And a lot of your assessment stuff should be getting your weak areas to fire, working on them firing, because it could be just a firing thing, right? If your muscles don't fire the way they're supposed to, then of course it's going to start to atrophy and get weaker and weaker. So you got to learn to activate them, wake them up, get them ready to work, and then they'll start to grow from there. So that's kind of what we're doing. And as you can see, every time I come down, I'm just not strong enough to hold myself up. So I got to put my hand down, still getting work in, still moving, and still getting those things activated. Here I'm doing a lat stretch, and the purpose of this lat stretch is with the bench is to keep a neutral spine while you're stretching out your lats. And for me, I have a hard time supinating my grip. So what I'm trying to work on here is just get my lats to open up a little bit so that I can supinate and externally rotate my hand outward so that I can get a better deadlift bar position. And these are just kind of some helicopter twists that are on a couple of Chris's YouTube videos, and just working on bracing hard. So I have my hand on my abdomen, brace hard into it, twist down, and then open back up. You want to make sure that everything is kind of neutral. Twist down, open back up. Chris does these without his hands on something, but for me personally, I would rather have my hand on and make sure that I'm getting a good stretch and I don't lose my balance than to try to do it and worry about balance too much, because it's definitely not one of my strong suits. So just opening the hips back and forth, open the hips on that movement, then you're stretching out the glutes and the IT band and everything on the other side. About 5 times each side. And this is pretty much it. This is my lower body warm-up. Go straight into squats after this. Takes about a good 5 to 8 minutes. Get in, get out, get to work, guys. Catch you guys next time. Take care.